You're listening to the Coop Homeschool Podcast.
This is your podcast for community, humility, and joyful fun in homeschooling. I'm Mandy.
I'm Jessica.
And this is The Coop. It's faith and friends today.
Yes.
Yeah, the homeschool community is made up of all different creeds and religions and backgrounds. And so sometimes there can be conflict because we have different faiths.
And we're building such intimate friendships amongst ourselves as adults and the kids.
Yeah, and we have that desire to be known. Mm-hmm. And when your faith is your most core value, that can get in the way amongst, mom friends, but also among our children as well. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today as a discussion.
Yes.
And hopefully we can be a help to anyone who is going through that right now So let's do our scoop on the coop.
Okay, I'll go. So my little guy, August, is ready for his own extracurriculars.
Oh, fun. What are you going to do?
So I'm putting him, he's already registered for the same music program Sophia did.
Oh.
It's a preschool music program called Sound Beginnings.
Yep.
It's through the Let's Play music program that I've talked all about in our music and movement episode. And so he's going to start his first year. So that's exciting and just crazy that my baby is growing up because it was just me taking Sophia 6 years ago.
I know. And didn't she seem so much older when you were doing that?
And he's a baby.
Yeah, I know. I had that similar experience between, my daughter going for the first time and then my second daughter going for the first time. I'm like, I can't believe my daughter was younger than this when I took her.
Right. And it's so different. Mm-hmm. I had so many high expectations for my first child because she was so old. And now my baby will just always be the baby.
Yeah, because with your first
whether
one...
he's young or not.
Yeah, the first month even with your first one is an eternity. Yeah. And there's been so much growth and learning as a parent with your first one that now they just always seem so old,
Right. It's crazy.
Yeah. So anything else?
Well, I was going to put him into gymnastics too.
Oh,
so we have a list of things to do.
Yeah, and I'm on wait list right now for gymnastics for all three kids. So
that's fun.
Yeah. So we are wearing, for those who can't see us, because this is so important, we are wearing matching sweatshirts.
We coordinated.
Super cute. They're both gray and pink. They're gray with pink flowers on them. And
they're different, but
you didn't plan that.
No.
When you showed up with that, I was like,
I don't even like this sweatshirt, but I was like, I've got to just wear it.
I love this sweatshirt.
I care so much about not repeating my clothes on the podcast that nobody watches on YouTube that I was like, all right, fine, I'll wear the sweatshirt.
That's so funny.
And then you're like, yes!
Yeah, I'll go get mine. Mine was still in my suitcase from
that's so funny.
whenever I went on a trip so long ago.
Yep.
So I want to do my scoop.
Yes.
Besides our sweatshirts, my scoop is I just did a book club with our my brother and sister-in-law and husband. They were in town and they live in Colorado. So they were already reading a book called The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. And I was like, oh, if you really love it, Marcus and I will jump in and do it too. And I think it's like 32 hours of listening. Yeah. And it was fascinating, but the reason I bring it up is there was a lot about museum and art, also vintage or antique furniture, drugs, and even European countries, and then the art, the illegal art trade. And what struck me was the author had to research museums, art, had to research what does it feel like to be on drugs. I mean, the drug depictions are really long, and these are like age 13, 14, 15-year-old kids doing them. Yeah. And she's a female, and it was a teenage boy. And it's there's a movie, and the movie's as always cannot hold a candle to the book, right? But it has Nicole Kidman and it has some famous people in it.
Sure.
But it's like, oh no, I hope people don't watch the movie and think this is what the book is. But it struck me because having a daughter that wants to write, there's a lot of research that goes into it. And then I was also thinking, I wonder what kind of experiences Donna, the author, had, because maybe she already had a proclivity for art or had been a good thrift store shopper and had gotten to know, so my sister-in-law, who's really into antiques, she knew all the names that were being listed of the different types of furniture and how
cool.
one was it was a faux one, but being passed off as a real one. And she knew the names, and then the author makes 32 references to literature as well. And some, Dickens and things like, some are really well known and others you've never heard. And so I was just thinking of all the things the author had to know, but probably a lot she had to know by experience as well.
Yeah.
And she probably had to read a lot of boy journals. She
really to get inside the head of a
teenage boy. A teenage girl lives a totally different life, even if she had journals of her own. So it just struck me of how important it is to experience different things. And I was talking to the spouse about this. I was saying, I can go to Balboa Park over and over and over again.
Right.
I can go to New Zealand over and over again. But eventually it's, pretty soon after one or two times, it's not going to impact them the same way as a new experience would, and how important new experiences are, not just to expose them to interests, which we've talked about, but also for developing a wide understanding of the various lives and the geography around them.
Yeah.
So it was a really cool book in that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to our topic, faith and friends. I mentioned that the homeschool community is full of different faiths, and I found some statistics, and I'll link it on our podcast, but this is through that website that we've used in the past for
NHERI.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's 2/3 of homeschoolers are religious and primarily Christian, or on the Christian spectrum, and 25% are secular. They could be atheist, agnostic, or non-religious. And so I think there used to be a common thread that, 20 years ago, mostly religious, mostly Christian. And now we're seeing people of all different backgrounds, make this decision, and which is super cool.
Right. And just as a homeschooled person, so, in the 90s, I knew homeschoolers, and definitely growing up at ballet, I only knew Christian homeschoolers for sure. And even through high school, but that's because that was the group I got plugged into. But I don't really remember any fringy, non-Christian homeschoolers. But now as a homeschool parent in Southern California, I actually don't feel like it's primarily one
you don't
or the
know.
other. It feels really balanced to me. I know who my Christian homeschool, parents are, and I know who's not. And it, in my life, feels more close to 50-50, I think, than it would seem.
Yeah, and since I'm super transparent and I don't filter what I think or say, I usually ask people first time meeting them, like, are you religious? Because since someone's faith is such a core value, if they have a certain faith, I want to know what that value is, or if they have a value where all roads lead to God, I want to know that value. I feel like you know someone better by knowing what their core beliefs are.
And honoring that in them. It may be different than you, and you may not share the commonality, but it's neat to honor people for who they are and what they believe, and to understand it. And then to know how to approach asking a question like, what do you do for this? Out of a genuine, honest interest in that person. Rather than always skirting the subject and not being sure how to just get in there.
I love it when I have people in my life who don't believe the same as me, but we can talk about our beliefs. I can share myself with them, and that's how we feel truly known, is sharing your core values and knowing there's not going to be judgment about it, knowing that they're like, oh, now I just get to know you better.
And can I share a little parallel? In our kickoff to the new season episode, we talked about mom identities and homeschool mom identities. But what we really shared was that our personal identities are rooted in Christ for us personally. And to be able to share that with somebody is really to let them know who we actually are. And so when you bond with somebody just wearing your homeschool mom hat, that's not necessarily giving an entire glimpse. And while you might have a great friendship doing that, that's a certain kind of friendship rather than getting down to sharing your core identities.
And then and loving them and respecting them, knowing all that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. You can have an amazing relationship with someone whose core identity is different than yours.
Yeah.
But knowing that and being able to talk about it rather than avoiding it altogether is definitely what's going to make for great friendships.
Yeah. Or pretending.
Or pretending.
Yeah.
If you don't really understand where somebody is and you just think you know, and you're not willing to ask or to hear.
Yeah. And so religion and faith is bound to come up. And I make snafus all the time. I mean, I'm a major, put my foot in my mouth. And then I'm like, oh, wait, are you not religious? Or wait, I said the wrong word. And hopefully by then when I do that, they know me well enough to know I love them whoever they are.
Just genuinely curious.
Yeah. And I just want to know people so much. So that's something to always keep in mind when you're making friends and forming groups, that it's okay to know what someone believes about life and the afterlife,
for sure.
And what they do on Sunday, So, okay. So with that in mind, we want to help our children too, because our children feel like we do. My children, I'm hoping that they grow in their identity of believing in Christ and knowing that they're a child of God, and have their hope tied up in knowing that they have a Father in heaven who has a plan for their life and has forgiven them, and they can look forward to heaven even with all these wonderful people in heaven, and so and they want to share that. So we have already come into some situations. We've had a situation where at a birthday party, the kids of different faith backgrounds are debating, and these were 7-year-olds at the time. They were debating who wrote the Bible.
Right.
And then I've had situation where I have a daughter who's an evangelist, I have to say. And she's like, when she, I don't know, was she 5 or 6? I think she was 6.
Last year.
Yeah. And she proceeded to tell one of our closest friends, she not only wanted to convert the 3-year-old, but she also wanted to tell the mom how to raise her child.
Right.
And my kids know that's totally inappropriate.
Right.
And so what we're going to talk about those situations. And so I'm going to ask you first, how do you approach your kids and discussing their core values when it comes to faith with other kids around their same age or in a span near their age?
I told my daughter that it's always hard to be able to tell. And I said that we want to be respectful of people believing different things. And so if you're not sure if a conversation is appropriate, you should ask. And then that's part of the balance of kids too, right? Is they're doing all this stuff on the fly. If it comes up somewhere, and they don't know, as a dance teacher, it comes up in my classroom. One kid will just share something, okay, what was your favorite color? This is one of my favorite ones. What was your favorite color? Oh, crimson, like the blood of Jesus.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It's so sweet, but I'm sure her mom would actually prefer her to just say crimson. And leave it at that. In a public setting in front of other people's children where the parents aren't even hearing it. So that's the thing is, when I'm there, I'm okay with my daughter to talk about things because then I can jump in and navigate for her and not have to give her any filters specifically. But now that she's getting older and spends much more independent time, we just talk about what kinds of things should be talked about with adults and families and are individual to certain families. Inviting them to come to a church function or to come and learn this thing would be totally appropriate.
Right.
But to tell somebody that they need to believe this or that they are wrong for not believing it is absolutely not okay.
Right.
And if you want to have a discussion like that, come to me and your dad first so that we can help guide you in the appropriate way. If you feel compelled to share the gospel with somebody, that should be okay.
Yeah.
But there's ways to do it that are appropriate and ways to do it that are not.
Right. Especially as they get older.
Right.
I don't know what kind of gospel my 5-year-old is sharing.
Right. Is it accurate?
Yeah.
Is it not representative of what you guys truly believe? Because she's 5.
I mean, I have my kids come home from hanging out at someone's house saying that this mom said this, and it's totally outlandish. Like, I can't believe anyone would actually believe that.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm sure she didn't say that, but that's their interpretation of it.
Right.
So I'm just like, oh, okay. You know, that's what they believe. But I'm like, I'm sure she doesn't even believe that.
Right. But you don't know because you weren't there.
Yeah.
Like, you can't even walk through these things.
Yeah. So their lens is not always, and then it goes the other way too. Like, I have no idea what they're communicating either. And we haven't sat with them and been like, okay, these are the words you
Give
say.
them a script.
Yeah. We're just happy for our kids to share their hearts. And I love friends of all different faiths who say, I'm happy for your child to share their heart. And that's what our friend did, but we don't also want them being disrespectful and disobedient. So I've done the same thing you did. I said the Santa Claus, the fairies, all that, plus what we do for Sunday, what we believe about Jesus, and plus how babies are made.
Yes.
I've said that is for the family.
Right. Those are off-limit topics.
Yeah. And
in both scenarios.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like, if you truly believe, if you're a person of religious faith, if you truly believe God will work in the hearts of people, you don't have to go out of your way to make that happen. Right. Like, you can just be you and show his love and kindness to people, and your kids can do the same thing.
And it's not avoidance. That's the clear thing. It's not that you never share who you are, but there's a difference between just saying it for yourself and expressing who you are, and also pushing or teaching or, condemning. Yeah.
And sometimes, like, it can, like, let's use Santa Claus as an example. Oh, I don't do Santa Claus. You could say it like that. Or you can say, oh, in our family, that's not something that we promote. Right. There's ways to say things as well that seem less judgmental. And if you do have the mindset that God gives these children to these parents to raise. Yes. He has given these souls to these other souls to raise. So who am I now to insert myself into that, unless there was like harm being done, unless it's our depravity. That's it. Right. Yeah. And then as kids get older, they make their own decisions anyway. So, and usually the friends that I know that are secular, are completely open to that. Sure. They actually are trying to promote an environment where their kids can learn about it on their own and choose for themselves when they're older, and they can walk them through that, or let someone else do that, through friendships or whatever. So anyway, so I want to read this because I was talking to my dad about this. My dad is amazing. Yes. And he has a lot of experience with this. And then I was also talking to Marcus about this, and Marcus is like, well, what do the relationship experts say? Right. So
give us a little background about Marcus and your dad, just because they are very well educated in this area. So that's why it was important to ask them.
Okay. So my dad, he's actually on one of the scholars for Reasons to Believe. So the Reasons to Believe was started by this PhD astronomer, and also this, and worked with like a biochemist in the, what's it called?
I made you go ahead. So.
In the the scientific testable creation model, Dr. Fuzz Rana, a biochemist, but Dr. Hugh Ross is the astronomer with Reasons to Believe. But my dad's one of the scholars there, and he actually teaches with Reasons to Believe. Right. And
what's his educational background?
Oh, his educational background is mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering. Basically, engineers seem to know everything, right? But they are scientists of engineering, basically. They're not putting potions together and stuff, but and so he teaches at churches and other community centers with other scholars and scientists about reasons to believe in an intelligent design and a creator God who answers prayer. Right. So they're not necessarily saying why Jesus, but that probably comes into it.
They're looking for those questions about, okay, but how do you justify this and this.
Yeah.
And then they are able to do that. They're like, well,
yeah, those are the questions, because they always have an open mic.
Right.
And sometimes that's what this session is. And they just have a panel.
So cool.
And so, so he's very experienced at this. And then my husband has a master's in church history. And went to seminary, and so
and he has a PhD
in history.
Yeah.
So he knows that whole aspect of church history and the evolution of religion, because that's really what he focused on in his history PhD. And so I talked with both of them, and you know who the relationship experts are in our faith? It's the Bible. Right. It's God.
Right.
And a story that my dad told me all growing up came to my mind. And so I called my dad and I found out, where it was in the Bible, and I'm just going to read it.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is Paul. This is after Jesus has died and ascended to heaven, and he's in Athens, and so he's preaching, and so I'll read it to you. It's Acts 17. So this is a book in the Bible. Now, while Paul was waiting for them at Athens, his spirit was provoked within him as he saw the city was full of idols. So he reasoned in the synagogue with the Jews and the devout persons, and in the marketplace every day with those who happened to be there. And I love that that it says he reasoned with them and not shouted,
right?
And
or even taught.
Yeah, like he reasoned with them.
Discussed with them.
Yes. Okay, so some of the Epicurean and Stoic philosophers also conversed with him, and some said, "What does this babbler wish to say?" And others said, "He seems to be a preacher of foreign divinities, because he was preaching Jesus and the resurrection." And they took him and brought him to the Areopagus, which is, it said it was like a rock formation or something right outside of Athens, like northwest or northeast of Athens. And so they took him there saying, "May we know what this new teaching is that you are presenting? For you bring some strange things to our ears. We wish to know, therefore, what these things mean." So there you're seeing the curiosity is there too. They're saying, "Hey, let's pull you to the side and let's really discuss this."
Right.
Because he seemed equipped. He seemed to have information they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And they were interested. Now all the Athenians and the foreigners who lived there would spend their time in nothing except telling or hear something new. So Paul, standing in the midst of the Areopagus, said, "Men of Athens, I perceive that in every way you are very religious. For as I passed along and observed the objects of your worship, the idols, I found also an altar with this inscription, 'To the unknown God.' What therefore you worship as unknown, this I proclaim to you." So what this unknown God, let me tell you about this guy. Let me tell you what is out there, but don't know anything about.
Right.
Because I do. I have information about that. And these are, remember, philosophers and people listening to him. "The God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in temples made by man, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mankind life and breath and everything. And he made from one man every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place, that they should seek God and perhaps feel their way toward him and find him. Yet he is not actually far from each of us." So, and it goes on from there and it talks about God and stuff. And that's how my dad would teach me about modeling, how to discuss these things. Like, is there curiosity?
Right.
If there's curiosity, share. So that's what we try to tell our kids. Like, if they ask you, you have every right to tell them all about it. But if they're just sitting there playing and you are putting that on them, I don't necessarily want them doing that to you either.
Exactly. This is a two-way street here.
Yeah. It's one thing for them to know that you have a faith and you go to church on Sunday and that's an important thing about you.
They're free to ask anytime they want to.
Definitely. And they can come visit.
Right.
They're, I try to make sure.
Open invitation.
Yeah. And my kids always want to invite their friends. And so I reach out when they want to and just say, just so you know, the kids want to invite, but no obligation. Pressure. Yeah. And so the curiosity, and it's not confrontational. No. It's literally like, you already have a spot for this, God, and I can tell you about it.
Right.
And then they said, yes, tell us, we want to hear. And so I thought that was just a really great model for us to remember. Yeah. For answering curiosity. And so that's a way to instruct our kids using the expert, using God, using the Bible, and
using the tools that we believe in.
Yeah. Right. And then my dad also pointed out, he's like, and remember, he did it respectfully and honoring. And he's like, he didn't put down what they believed.
Nope.
He's just saying, you don't need those idols. This God doesn't need that.
Right.
This God doesn't need food to put, doesn't need a statue, doesn't need anything handmade, because he is actually with you. He's very near you. And so he just used it to like compare and contrast, but it wasn't judgmental.
No.
So I think like, what a great story that is. And that always stuck with me, So when we talked about doing this podcast, I was like, oh, that's perfect. So how can us moms and dads do the same thing? Like amongst our friends and in front of our kids, modeling it. And what do you think?
I mean, really, I follow the same rules.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I share what is important for people to know me. When I'm struggling with something or having a vulnerable moment, I'm going to show my true self. So if I'm going to say, I was really struggling with this, so I was praying about it, and I was really reading in the Bible about this issue, and here's what I came up with. So I'm taking this to apply it to my situation, and if I'm looking for counsel from a friend, do you think that this approach to it's going to be okay or whatever? So not asking them to speak about my own tools, but to say, is my outcome I can still ask them, so there's so many ways for me to be able to be my true self while also not putting it on somebody. And if they still don't want to hear that side of me, then that's
just a barrier in your friendship.
Right.
Like you can still have a wonderful friendship, but if they're not open to like
hearing me be myself without even saying like, I'm going to pray for you. Yeah. Even if I always pray for my friends, I don't always have to tell them that or make them feel uncomfortable by always pushing and putting it on them. So as adults, I think that it's perfectly reasonable to have conversations. I usually err on the side of less is more, just because I'm not comfortable having, these deep conversations or apologetics. I'm still working through apologetics for myself.
Yeah. And apologetics is basically the defense of your faith.
Exactly. Right? And so I'm still working on that. I didn't find the Christian church until I was 13, 14. And then it was mostly through my peers inviting me and bringing me. So it was very genuine and open. And then when I went away to college in San Francisco for a few years as a 17-year-old, I really turned away.
Yeah.
And then I really had my own journey back and my own faith. And now I'm very solid in my faith, but I'm working through all of those things because I remember what it was to question it all. I know what it was to be on the other side personally as a young adult, so I understand all those questions. And so I'm still studying and working through and learning the best responses, and being confident in them. But because I'm such an empathizer, it's so easy for me to say, but you're just going to think different, and that's okay.
Oh, well, and it is,
right? Like God, I believe God calls us all to be different, and we're all different.
Well, he created us all different.
Exactly. And he has different purpose for each of us. And so I don't think he created me to be an apologist, No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I'm not sharing in my own unique way. By me being genuine and honest and open doesn't mean that I'm not also just sharing him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a struggle because I'm like an impassioned talker.
Right.
So I do get myself into trouble when there's a debate happening. Yeah. So in college, there was a lot of that, and the emotions were high in the room. And my best friend, she was an atheist, or still an atheist, at the time, my best friend at the time. And it was so neat though, because she was able to be like, help me reason out doctrine and theology.
Right.
She was like, okay, but if it says this, then how can you say this? And I'd be like,
figure that out.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. And she would help me walk through that myself. So, which could either grow your faith or change it.
Right.
You know?
And then what do we believe? Do you believe that you change the hearts of others?
Right. No, of course not. Yeah.
So even though you being even encouraged and more determined after those conversations, they didn't change her.
Right. Yeah.
And that's okay too. She may feel even more solid with where she's at, but at the same time, it's never our role to change someone's heart.
Yeah.
It's our role to be a great example and to share the love of Christ is the role that I believe that I have. And I share that by loving people.
Yeah. Yeah. And we all love people in different ways, you know? So, it's just it's such a sticky topic for people because people are afraid to talk about it.
Right.
And then they don't want to, if their kid does want to share the hope and love that they have about Jesus, they don't want to squelch that.
No.
Like that's all I want for my kids is to love God with all their heart, soul, and mind.
So how did you end up handling that when you had your one who you had to have a conversation with about it was too far?
Yeah. So when my little one was trying to instruct a mom on how to parent her child and also waited for me to leave to go to the bathroom to do that.
And snuck gifts.
Yeah. And
She would sneak over religious items as gifts.
Yeah. Stuff from VBS
I just love it. The story is just so cute and you can't not love the story.
I know.
But how did you discern and were able to
So I
walk her
didn't
through
say anything at that moment because I'm more impulsive and I'm more impassioned. And so, the idea of a friend getting hurt or bothered in that way bothered me as well.
Right.
So I tasked my spouse to do it.
Yeah.
And he's very gentle and he can handle that. But, basically he just reminds the kids and he reminded her, you're not ready to do that, you know, and if they ask you, please share.
Right.
But if they don't, you're not ready to have those conversations, you know? And so our plan is, by high school age, that's when all the kids are going to feed each other's minds and hearts, and hopefully they come back to our parents, like my dad said, I would always recommend little kids, ages 10 and under or whatever. If they're in a conversation like that, whether it's when they want to be in or not, they say, oh, let's go ask our mommy or daddy about that right now. And let's talk about it with them. And so you just bring it to them and then the moms can address it at that time saying, oh, is this something we want to discuss with our kids right now? Or do we want to say, hey, well, let's talk about this later. And I appreciate your discussion and I definitely want to address it and help you
but
with
we're
this.
going to do it privately as families.
And the motivation of all this is just being respectful and honoring of people we love that think differently.
Exactly.
And so if everyone is of the same faith, but maybe different areas on the spectrum of that faith, that's no big deal to me. Like we're not trying to, make someone believe in God who doesn't, that's a different scenario when they already do. And, and it's so enriching and wonderful to get to have those discussions, just like when you're a group of homeschool kids, it's enriching and wonderful to have homeschooling conversations. But if it's half traditional, half homeschooling, it's not really a conversation you want to get into at the moment, So you can kind of think of another topic like that. And so, this last question, how do we handle our co-op then? Because our co-op is nicely diverse. We've talked about that multiple times. I think it does represent the real world. Right. With different, it doesn't have every nationality and every ethnicity.
No, but it's pretty well rounded.
Yeah. And so for Easter.
Oh yeah. So if I want to do something and celebrate a holiday that to me is religious, I don't think of Easter as being non-religious, though I know that some people celebrate it through Easter bunnies or, the whole idea of spring. So it's varied over the years as our group has changed. In the beginning, our group was mostly Christian. And so that year was great, but I was upfront. I said, I'm going to be sharing, the resurrection story. We're going to be doing resurrection eggs. And so They're going to hunt for eggs that will together tell the story of the resurrection through, physically opening each item.
Right.
And so that was really fun and unique. The second year, we just did a teaching moment first. So that second year, I knew we had a little more religious diversity in the group. So I said, from 10 to 10:30, we're going to do a resurrection story study. If you don't want to be there for that, come at 10:30. We're going to do our picnic lunch, and then we're going to go do the Easter eggs after that. So if you just want to come at 10:30 and not have to worry about anything you're uncomfortable with your kids hearing or being a part of, that's fine. It's just a teaching moment. There's no need to feel left out.
Yeah.
We'll come and do the Easter egg hunt later. And the Easter egg hunt, I usually do like little activity cards inside, so they have to jump 5 times like a rabbit. So for me, the activity doesn't have to be, not every aspect of this had to be religious in nature, but it really is important to me as a person to have that opportunity. And when you have a group to do that with, how special.
Yeah.
But at the same time, trying to find the balance. So it's really difficult for something that you personally feel strongly about, being religious or not, and then presenting that to the group and wanting to not make anyone feel left out. So I think as the group has continued to evolve and get bigger, it's now even more of a challenge. I probably won't put an aspect of religion in there. I probably won't.
Yeah, and that's okay.
And that's okay, because I'm going to do that at home, or I can
we can get together.
You.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be your co-op. You can have you can invite 3 or 4 families to your house or to the park and do that aspect as well. And so for Christmas, I usually host the Christmas party.
Yeah.
And I think the first year I did that, I knew everyone had a faith.
Right.
And I didn't know if there were 1 or 2 people that didn't. I didn't know them well enough to know they didn't. So I just assumed, I guess. And I think the only thing we did was I prayed.
Oh, sure.
But now with the co-op, I wouldn't do that because I want to, this isn't my co-op.
No,
this is a shared co-op. Yeah,
absolutely.
But if I were to have my own Christmas party, like a personal Christmas party, and I invited people from all over, not just the co-op, but I invited people from all over, I have every freedom
to host it how you want.
Yeah, to host it however I want.
Right. And then that's for your individual relationships with your friends to work out if somebody.
Yeah, if someone's offended by that, then they can talk to me about that.
Right.
Or,
but it's not a leave the group.
I can run my party the way I want. Right. And then what you and I did last year, which the kids mentioned love.
Oh, yeah.
And they've mentioned it multiple times. Are we going to do that this year?
So cute.
Is the Jesse and I did a Christmas day together of learning.
Right. It was based on the Gather Round unit studies that we've talked about, and that was the first one. That was my trial run to see if I would like using their unit study, and it was a mini one, and I just picked and chose the items that were good. We altered the crafts to be what we already had. We didn't go out and buy anything special for that day because we kind of put it together somewhat last minute, I think.
Yeah, well, because you had just gotten it and you
yeah.
printed it, and
but we had an amazing full day together.
And the kids loved, and we didn't even do everything that was on there, but we didn't need to. There was enough on there, and I was so surprised. It's like 8 months later, and they're still bringing it up, and are we going to get to do that this year? And so I think that's the kind of stuff you can still do, because
absolutely
during the day, you can do whatever you want. You can have a school day, invite a few of the same faith people over.
Right.
And if you want, you can invite people of a different faith and just let them know this is what we're doing. You can choose to be there.
I prefer transparency.
Yeah.
I want people to feel informed, and not because I don't want them to come or feel left out, but this is important to me, so I'm going to host it this way.
Yeah.
I just wanted you to know we would love to have you.
Yeah.
But I don't want you to be uncomfortable or to be surprised.
Yeah, like you don't want to bait and switch.
No.
Well, so here's another thing. I invited everyone to go to the Great Homeschool Convention of our co-op.
Yes.
I had no idea that it was a Christian conference, actually. I've been 3 times. And it's been a couple of years since I've been to that one. And it was... but I went there with going to the sessions on how to homeschool. And I remember there being prayer in some of the things, but it didn't even strike me as a Christian conference. Yeah. Like, I went to like, maybe the prayer was at the Bible one I went to, you know,
Right.
I don't
so
even
you
know.
didn't realize that even having the Bible class made it a religious conference or not.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just assumed that was one
One
class
of the
you could
sessions.
pick.
Yeah. And so it was funny because I put it out to the whole group. We should all go, you know, and it was kind of last minute, so a lot of people couldn't go. And one person said, I'm not sure if I want to go. And I said, oh, well, check out the workshops and see if there's stuff there you like. And then she's like, well, that's exactly why I'm not sure I want to go. And I was like,
well, that's
oh. So then I go in and I see a lot of like creation versus evolution.
You put on a different lens.
Yeah, I put on that lens. And I was like, oh my word, like a third of the sessions are about Christianity or some kind of faith in that spectrum.
And I was unavailable this whole time. So then later we were talking, I'm like,
that's a Christian conference.
And
I was like, what? So then I go online and look at about.
Right.
And here we've already had people sign up. And so then I felt like, oh, I hope people don't think I knew that. And you know,
now
like
you don't want
I
to
would
be,
yeah. I mean, and people can look for themselves.
It's fine.
And people figure most of these conferences are that way. But that's just going to happen. And I don't want it to sound like we're being tiptoeing or walking on eggshells around people.
No.
But we're trying to be respectful and show that we love these people no matter what they believe.
Right.
They're our friends. They're our homeschool sisters.
Right.
And so we are just careful to show like we love you for who you are.
Yes.
You know, and so that is the motivation of everything that we're saying.
And if we wanted a purely Christian co-op, we would have done that.
Yeah.
But we didn't because we wanted really the foundation of our co-op to be passionate homeschool parents.
Yeah, that's
and
the value.
knowing that we want our kids to see a representation of what the world is like, you know, and to be able to love people of all kinds, you know, all backgrounds, all things. And so I think for us, you know, we didn't really actually have any parameters about religion or not.
Yeah,
you know, it wasn't until
it didn't
later
even
that
occur
we
to us.
it wasn't until later that we started talking about it because we were finding the balance between a holiday, you know, and how to present it. And do we do it at all? Or do we just leave holidays for people as individuals to do how they want, you know?
Yeah. So I'm just going to say some takeaways.
Yes.
I didn't write them down. I forgot to do that. So I'll just go off the top of my head.
Okay.
So one is preparing your child or children before you attend something. Yes. So a lot of times my kids will ask me, is so-and-so a Christian? Because they truly want to know. So they just know the conversation, especially the older ones, they want to know.
And they know what they are supposed to not bring up or talk about or how to address it, you know, so it's helpful for them to know who they're talking to.
Yeah. And then like around Christmas time, you know, this isn't religious based, but same thing. I still remind them like, oh, just so you know, so-and-so still believes in Santa Claus. So if any conversation talks about that, make sure you are just supporting that belief for them, you know, and
you don't have to lie. You don't have to do anything.
Just be like, oh, that's great. You know, and so it's the same kind of idea, like just preparing them for the people they're going to be with. Yes. And if they're going to be with fancy people, remember we're going to be with fancy people, so keep good manners. So you just always
don't burp out loud.
Yeah, before I go to a birthday party, I prepare them. This is their birthday. It's all about them having fun. Right. It's not about you. So I'm always preparing them before an event, and this is one way you can do that.
Totally.
And just remind them about and just come up with a family way of talking about it. Come up with a family way of saying, like, we're showing love, we want to share ourselves, but we want to equip you first, you know, with the right knowledge before you actually dive into theological debates
alone.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, not wanting to squelch that love and that hope to share about their Savior, you know. Okay, and then us as parents can equip ourselves by knowing resources that if I'm not a scientist, but I know did you know there was a survey by James H. Luba, started a survey in 1914 and then did it again in 1933. And then other people conducted it in 1996 and 1998. The National Academy of Sciences, NAS, was surveyed, the members. all those years.
Oh, okay. So any scientist who belongs to that.
Yeah. So any scientist that belongs to NAS, they were surveyed. And every single time, right around 40% believe in a God that is the God, let me say, I just wrote this down, believe in a personal God who answers prayer.
Interesting.
So no matter the scientific developments over the past 85 years almost, didn't change the percentage of scientists that are part of NAS that believe in a God.
Right.
Who answers a personal God who answers prayer. So
that's crazy.
You can find that in Scientific American.
Okay.
And it's from the September 1999. So, the survey was done in 1998. So it came out right after that. And my dad didn't know if they've done another survey since. He hadn't found anything about that yet. But September 1999, Scientific American, the article is called Scientists and Religion in America by Edward J. Larson and Larry Witham. And then also what they found, this is also in the article, what they found is physicians and engineers, so applied scientists, there was even a higher percentage.
Oh, interesting. So within the unique breakdowns of scientists.
Yeah, then the higher percentage of those, the applied scientists, and they said that physicians said struggling with making a heart work, and engineers and there was another other applied scientists, but engineers making planes fly. Those types of scientists had a higher percentage of them.
Interesting. So
because they struggled with the idea of creating an airplane. It actually encouraged them in their belief of a creator God.
Right. Created the birds who gave us the design model.
Yeah. So you can have resources for people if they are curious. You can have things like Scientific American in that article.
Right.
You can buy that, magazine and have it, Templeton Foundation. It's basically the Nobel Prize for people who conduct scientific studies in the area of religion. That's you can look up that, and there's research and there's studies that they've done.
Yeah.
And then Reasons to Believe, which I mentioned earlier. Right. And if people are truly curious and you feel like, I want to share with them in a way that speaks to them,
right?
But I don't have that information, you can always just say, hey, I'd love to talk about this with you. You want to find something, an article on Reasons to Believe together and talk about it. Like you can do that. It's very accessible, and then just coming in it, knowing that let's be kind to one another.
You can be friends with everybody.
Yeah.
Just be friends with everybody.
Yeah. And we have so much to gain from everyone.
Yeah.
We have so much to learn from each other, and it's not about us teaching about our faith. It's about learning the inner workings of the people we love.
Right. And having truly organic friendships.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, you ready for
the Coop Q&A,
where we answer your questions. If you have a question, you can submit it to us by visiting the podcast page on our website, thecoophomeschool.com, or by emailing us at mamahens@thecoophomeschool.com. Ready for today's question?
Yeah, let's hear it.
How does everyone do high school transcripts? Do colleges really accept them from a non-accredited school?
Wow, well, I have no idea about that question.
Okay, I do. So, do colleges really accept them? Yes, they do. And I know this because in high school, I went to school with several friends who were privately homeschooled, who graduated with private homeschool diplomas that their parents created for them. So, and they went on to have college degrees, multiple college degrees, in fact. So, that was 20 to 25 years ago. So I know firsthand that way back then, that was definitely a thing. And then because of the Coop Homeschool, our homeschool hub, and the hesitant homeschooler, I do know that colleges still currently accept non-accredited school diplomas. How does everyone do high school transcripts? That varies. So at this point in time, colleges, their admissions teams have their own unique ways of doing it. So You can try and mimic the public school transcript, but that's actually not highly recommended. The HSLDA and other ivscholars.org and other organizations that put together college-bound information for all students, including homeschoolers, they discuss being able to show the uniqueness of your child's education. So in all my research, what I was finding was, if you're homeschooling, you need to present the unique things that your kids have done as homeschoolers. You know, did they belong to a club that wouldn't be at a public high school? Talk about that. Talk about the hours that they spent doing this, that, or the other thing. Did they write a book? Share that with us. Talk about the hours. So the transcript does not need to be one-for-one matching a traditional high school transcript.
Wow, I had no idea.
So there are templates out there. So the HSLDA will help you find a template organization or something like that. So if you need a template to create yours, you totally can.
That's so cool.
And write down units, but even matching units is unnecessary.
Wow.
So the really big important thing would be to call the admissions office of the colleges or universities that your child is interested in and ask if they have a homeschool application. And if they do, use that to guide you. So it's never too soon. If you even just want to talk to the local state schools because you're just trying to get an idea, if your kid hasn't thought, oh, I'm going to go to Berkeley when they're 10 years old.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
If you need some advanced preparation, call the local universities to you. Or if you have a place that you would like your child to at least look into later, find out. Coordinate with other homeschool moms who have college students who have done this already. We aren't there yet, so I don't have a pool of firsthand information with that.
Well, one of our new co-op, our Coop group members,
Yes.
her daughter is going to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in engineering.
Right.
You know, but I think she may have gone through a charter school.
Public charter here in California. Yeah, so then she would have a more
Charter
traditional
homeschool.
Right,
Yeah.
but it's still a public
Yeah,
school.
yeah.
So she would have the transcript done for her with all the unit breakdowns that would be similar.
That's true.
So that would be the one way to do it. But, you know, she wasn't judged on her application because it was a homeschool versus a traditional school.
Yeah.
But then even just going further than that, you know, if you're a complete unschooler, you know, what do you do? If you've never kept a grade for your kid in your life, what do you do? And so you provide, it's basically a resume. Provide your child's educational resume. You know, surely you can look back and be able to write down things that they've studied and things that they've accomplished in their high school career.
And I've read, you know, since this episode isn't about this, so we don't have all the research and stuff, but I know I've come across articles where I've read that schools actually really love balancing the traditional school kids with, you know,
absolutely.
An influx of homeschool kids as well, because they offer a different, just a different experience.
Exactly. I had several sources say that most universities actually really encourage homeschoolers because they're just such a different personality. They bring something very different to the school, and it's good.
Yeah.
You know, not better, but it's good. It's
Yeah.
nice to have different styles on campus.
Yeah.
You meet all sorts of people. And so they do really love getting applications from homeschoolers, but you just want to know in advance and be prepared for what you're looking at. And so find out.
Well, you know what I'm going to do, you know, the next homeschool conference that comes around, I'm going to be taking the college high school track. So some homeschool conferences, well, they're big enough where they offer so many sessions that you can pick a track to go. There's like a parenting track or a teen track. And then there's like high school / college track. And then they have, I probably won't go to all the sessions because that's a lot. For my kid, my oldest kid who's 11, I don't really need to know everything right now.
Right.
But I thought I'm going to go through that because that will take a lot of the unknown out for me. I can read as much as I want from it, but if I can sit there and listen to someone talk and hear other people who have different struggles and different different situations, I can hear how that is, and then feel equipped and not wondering.
Right. So in addition to the HSLDA, check out the homeschool conferences. So many of them are online now. So you don't even have to get up off the couch and attend online.
Yeah, if you buy the registration, you get access to the digital versions of them for like 6 months or something.
Or that's even better.
Yeah.
And then we were discussing within the context of the rest of the show, we were talking about the NHERI.org, and it's a research organization focus on homeschool. And so they have all kinds of information on breaking down statistics and presenting actual studies. And so if you actually want that type of research and support to make you feel really confident that yes, your high schooler can go to college even if they're homeschooled and don't have a transcript, you know, you can look for that information specifically. So there's a lot of amazing resources for homeschoolers out there.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Thanks for answering the question.
Thanks for listening. We love your support. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast, leave a rating and review to let us know how we're doing, and share our podcast with your friends who need a little community, humility, and joyful fun in homeschooling.